Just before the fatal plane crash that claimed his life, witnesses reported a disturbing scene. Randy Rhoads and the pilot appeared to be struggling for control of the aircraft. The bizarre mid-air altercation was just the beginning of the tragic story. In the aftermath, Rhoads' bandmates came forward with chilling accounts, hinting at even darker circumstances surrounding that day. The world of rock and roll has long been associated with tragedy, often involving substance abuse, reckless behavior, and the relentless pressures of fame. But Rhoads stood apart from the stereotypical rock star image. He wasn't known for partying or indulging in excess. He was a quiet, disciplined musician who had made one devastating mistake, one that would cost him his life just as his star was beginning to rise. Born in 1956 in Santa Monica, California, Randy Rhoads entered a world where music was the family business. Both of his parents were music teachers, and from a young age his environment was filled with instruments and instruction. However, his family life quickly unraveled when his father abandoned the family before Randy turned 2. He left for another woman and remarried soon after. This betrayal left Randy's mother, Dolores Rhoads, to raise Randy and his 2 siblings alone. Determined to support her family, Dolores opened a music school in North Hollywood. It was more than just a business. It would become the crucible that forged her son's extraordinary talent. At just 7 years old, Randy began studying music. At his mother's school, where he first picked up the guitar, his progress was so rapid that his first instructor eventually refused to continue teaching him, admitting that Randy had already surpassed his skills. It was a glimpse into the prodigious talent that would later captivate the rock world. During middle school, Randy formed a close bond with a fellow outcast named Kelly Garney. Both boys felt alienated from their peers at John Muir Middle School due to their unconventional looks and tastes. But their friendship proved formative as they began experimenting with music together. A turning point in Randy's life came on July 11, 1971, when he attended an Alice Cooper concert at the Long Beach Auditorium. According to his brother, Randy was visibly affected during the show, nearly catatonic as he watched Cooper perform. It was more than entertainment. It was a revelation. In Alice Cooper, Randy saw a blueprint for his own destiny. Driven by newfound purpose, he accelerated through high school and returned to his roots, teaching guitar at his mother's music school. He soon assembled a band with Garney, Kevin Dubrow, Drew Forsythe, and himself. They called themselves Quiet Riot and began making waves in the Los Angeles music scene. By 1976, the band had secured a deal with CBS Sony. However, in a baffling move, their first 2 albums, both recorded in 1978, were released exclusively. In Japan, despite the band's popularity in LA, the pressure of quick production took its toll. Tensions flared, particularly between Garney and Dubrow. One night, an intoxicated Garney snapped. He pulled a gun on Dubrow and physically attacked Randy, even ranting about killing Dubrow. The violence forced Randy to make a heartbreaking decision. He fired his closest friend from the band. Not long after, Randy received a call from bassist Dana Strum, who had a surprising proposition. British rocker Ozzy Osbourne, recently ousted from Black Sabbath due to his escalating substance abuse, was in LA and forming a new band. Strum urged Randy to audition. At first, Randy wasn't particularly interested. He was focused on Quiet Riot and skeptical of Osbourne's reputation. Still, he agreed to audition, but what happened during that session remains murky. Rhoads claimed he never actually met Ozzy, who was reportedly passed out or heavily intoxicated in the control room. Despite the chaos, Osbourne later insisted. He knew immediately, just from hearing Randy play, that he had found the guitarist who would define his solo career. According to Ozzy Osbourne, the moment Randy Rhoads began playing at his audition, he knew he had found something special. Ozzy was blown away by Rhoads' precision, tone, and originality. He offered him the job on the spot. Before heading back to the UK, Osbourne had a jam session with Rhoads and bassist Dana Strum. Rhoads, still loyal to Quiet Riot, initially declined the offer. Quiet Riot, though popular in the LA club scene, had failed to secure a US record deal, while Osbourne was a known figure internationally. After some reflection, the opportunity felt too significant to ignore, and Rhoads finally accepted. Back in England, Osbourne's management team was hesitant. They weren't convinced about bringing an American guitarist, especially one who had virtually no name recognition, into the fold. But Osbourne insisted, eventually persuading them to give Rhoads a chance. On November 27, 1979, Rhoads arrived in London. He made his way by train to Bulrush Cottage, Osbourne's countryside home. There, the band began to take shape. They added drummer Lee Kerslake, formerly of Uriah Heep, to complete the lineup. Wanting to establish this as Osbourne's solo project, they named the group the Blizzard of Ozz. Though Rhoads was still an unknown to British audiences, his talent couldn't stay hidden for long. The band embarked on a UK tour to support their debut album, Blizzard of Ozz, which was a commercial and critical success. But it was the second album, Diary of a Madman, that truly elevated Rhoads' profile. He was awarded Best New Talent by Guitar Player magazine, and Sounds named him the best heavy metal guitarist. Despite his growing fame, Rhoads couldn't completely turn his back on his roots. He returned to Los Angeles for a one-night reunion with Quiet Riot at the Whiskey A Go-Go, an act that did not sit well with Sharon Arden, Osbourne's manager and girlfriend. That impromptu reunion and the personal connection Rhoads had developed with Sharon had complicated consequences. Sharon warned Rhoads not to play with Quiet Riot again. The relationship between Rhoads and Sharon was rumored to have become romantic, which may have influenced her decisions about the band's internal dynamics. When the Blizzard of Ozz took a short break, Rhoads returned to find that Sharon had fired two of his close friends, bassist Bob Daisley and drummer Lee Kerslake. This blindsided Rhoads. Though he was spared the axe, possibly due to Sharon's fondness for him, he was deeply hurt by the decision and the way it was handled. Rhoads considered quitting. He confided in Kerslake, saying he didn't want to be part of a band that discarded people so easily, especially those who had helped build its foundation. But Kerslake, understanding what a rare opportunity Rhoads had, advised him to stay. Despite his growing discomfort, Rhoads chose to continue with the band. However, the cracks in his passion for rock were already beginning to show. During the U.S. leg of the tour, he began to explore classical guitar again, even seeking out instructors in cities where the band performed. He dreamed of enrolling at UCLA and earning a degree in classical music. Life on the road with Osbourne wasn't easy. Ozzy's erratic behavior, largely driven by alcohol abuse, created a tense and unstable environment. Some nights he refused to perform, locking himself in his dressing room or disappearing entirely. The tour manager often had to coax him onto the stage, and if Ozzy couldn't be persuaded, shows were simply canceled, something Rhoads found increasingly intolerable. He thrived on structure and discipline, and the chaos of touring with Ozzy wore him down. Behind the scenes, Rhoads was already planning for life after heavy metal. He spoke of walking away, not just from Osbourne, but from the entire scene, wanting instead to focus on his first love, classical guitar. Sadly, he would never get that chance. As he grappled with the pressures of fame and his own artistic crossroads, the situation was about to take a fatal turn, one from which he would never return. In February 1982, tensions between Randy Rhoads and Ozzy Osbourne reached a breaking point. Osbourne's management announced that the Blizzard of Ozz would be recording a live album composed entirely of Black Sabbath covers at Toronto's Maple Leaf Gardens. This idea didn't sit well with Rhoads or drummer Tommy Aldridge. Both musicians were adamantly opposed to performing a set of songs that had nothing to do with them creatively. They had worked hard to craft a distinct identity with Blizzard of Ozz, and being reduced to a Black Sabbath tribute act felt like a step backward. When they voiced their refusal, Osbourne didn't take it well. Known for his impulsive nature and increasing alcohol dependence, Ozzy reacted with fury. Though he would later claim he didn't remember doing it, he allegedly fired the entire band in a drunken rage. For Rhoads, that moment solidified his decision. He was done with Osbourne. He was tired of the chaos, the unpredictability, and the disrespect. He wanted out, but he couldn't leave just yet. Legally, he still owed Jet Records one more studio album and a final tour. As part of this contractual obligation, he also had to agree to go through with the very concert he had opposed, the live Black Sabbath tribute in Toronto, the freedom he longed for, freedom to pursue classical music to escape the world of heavy metal, was just over the horizon. Tragically, he wouldn't live to see it. Despite the friction between Rhoads and Osbourne, the tour pressed on. On March 18, 1982, the band played in Knoxville, Tennessee. The next stop was Orlando, Florida, where they were scheduled to perform at the Rock Super Bowl, a major music festival. En route to Orlando, the band's tour bus encountered mechanical issues. Specifically, the air conditioning system broke down in the sweltering Florida heat. To fix the problem, the bus pulled into Flying Baron Estates in Leesburg, a rural property with its own private airstrip and a collection of small aircraft and helicopters. While Osbourne and drummer Tommy Aldridge stayed on the bus to sleep, the rest of the crew wandered the grounds. The bus driver, Andrew Aycock, who also happened to be a licensed pilot, spotted a small Beechcraft Bonanza plane parked on the tarmac. On a reckless impulse, he decided to take it for a spin. He coaxed keyboardist Don Airey and tour manager Jake Duncan to join him for a low-flying joyride. As they soared above the estate, Aycock got the idea to buzz the tour bus, flying low in an attempt to wake the sleeping band members. It was reckless, but thrilling. After a few passes, he landed safely and, emboldened, decided to do it again. This time, he invited makeup artist Rachel Youngblood along for the ride. She had a heart condition, and Aycock promised he'd take it easy. Rhoads, who had a deep fear of flying, was hesitant, but perhaps feeling reassured by Youngblood's presence and Aycock's promises, he agreed to join them. Once airborne, it became obvious that Aycock had no intention of being careful. He once again began swooping low over the bus, buzzing it twice. At 10 a.m., Aycock prepared for a third pass. Don Airey stood nearby with a telephoto lens, capturing the flight. As he focused on the aircraft, he noticed something odd. Rhoads and Aycock appeared to be grappling inside the cockpit. Moments later, the plane clipped the top of the tour. Bus spiraled out of control and crashed into a nearby garage, bursting into flames. All three passengers, Randy Rhoads, Rachel Youngblood, and Andrew Aycock, were killed instantly. The music world lost one of its brightest young talents, and a future that had once seemed limitless came to a fiery, abrupt end, as the small Beechcraft plane came in for its third low pass over the tour bus. Keyboardist Don Airey could feel something was wrong. The aircraft was descending far lower than it had on the previous two passes. In a split second, Airey realized it was heading directly toward him. He ducked down to avoid being struck by the wing, which he estimated passed just 6 feet above the ground. As he turned around to follow the plane's trajectory, he witnessed something horrifying. The plane's wing struck the side of the tour bus with a violent thud. The sudden impact caused Randy Rhoads and Rachel Youngblood, who were seated inside the aircraft, to lurch forward with such force that their heads crashed through the windshield. In a matter of seconds, the plane clipped the top of a pine tree, lost control, and spiraled into the garage of a nearby mansion. The resulting explosion was immediate and catastrophic. The wreckage was engulfed in flames, and it was apparent to all who saw it that no one could have survived. Ozzy Osbourne later recalled that it took emergency services nearly 30 minutes to arrive at the scene. The fire was so intense that identifying the bodies was nearly impossible. Ultimately, investigators had to use dental records and personal jewelry to confirm Randy Rhoads' identity. Back on the road, Rhoads' girlfriend was driving when she noticed something strange on the radio. One station was playing nothing but Blizzard of Ozz songs. Moments later, the DJ interrupted the music to deliver the devastating news. Randy Rhoads had died in a plane crash. The shock and grief reverberated through the music world. What made the tragedy even more infuriating was what came to light in the days that followed. It turned out that Andrew Aycock, the tour bus driver turned impromptu pilot, had a questionable past with flying. Not only had his pilot's license expired, but he had previously been involved in a fatal aviation accident while working in the United Arab Emirates. Even more troubling was his condition on the day of the crash. Aycock was reportedly suffering from sleep deprivation, and toxicology reports suggested he may have been under the influence of drugs. To complicate matters further, his marriage was falling apart. His estranged wife, Wanda, was aboard the very bus he was buzzing with the plane. That detail led to a disturbing theory. Aycock claimed he was flying low to wake up the sleeping passengers, but several eyewitnesses reported seeing Wanda standing in the doorway of the bus during the final flyover. Some have speculated that Aycock's true intent was to crash the plane into the bus in an attempt to kill his wife and perhaps everyone else aboard. Supporting this chilling theory was Don Airey's testimony that he had seen a physical struggle inside the cockpit during the flight. It's believed that Rhoads may have realized what was happening and tried to wrest control of the plane away from Aycock in a desperate final act to prevent the crash. Though his life was tragically cut short at just 25 years old, Randy Rhoads' influence as a guitarist endures. Rolling Stone ranked him number 21 on their list of the greatest guitarists of all time, and Guitar World placed him at number 4 on their list of the top 100 heavy metal guitarists. His blend of classical technique and heavy metal intensity helped redefine the genre. His mother, Dolores Rhoads, ensured that his name would continue to inspire future musicians by founding the Randy Rhoads Scholarship Endowment, which supports promising guitar students. His legacy lives on in every guitarist who blends technical precision with raw emotion, and in every fan who hears his solos and is reminded of what could have been.